Come one, come all, to the show where former football stars tell their stories. Plus the 12th Man segment with Sports One Marketing. It's all right here, right now, on Thursday Night Tailgate. With your hosts, Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari. Guys, take it away.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Thursday Night Tailgate, home of the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. TNT is brought to you by the great folks over at Kyvan Foods, Coastal Orthopedics, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, and our new friends over at the French Lick Resort. I'm your host, Chris-Mascaro, and tonight my co-host, Bob-Lazzari, and I have 6 more great guests that we get the opportunity to share with you. We'll start things off with our 12th Man segment with Sports One Marketing CEO David Meltzer, and tonight David's special guest is Michelle Patterson, CEO of the Women's Network. So we look forward to hearing what they are working on together. They'll join us here in just a few minutes. Following them, our Pittsburgh sports insider and one heck of a great guy, Paul Alexander, is going to be back with us to take us inside what's going on with the Steelers this offseason, plus give us a look ahead to the Pirates, pitchers and catchers, folks, and then also the Penguins as well. Following Paul, former 49ers, Falcons, and Seahawks tight end Ron Heller is going to be making his TNT debut with us. We'll kick off the second hour with our friend and former Jaguars and Bucs wide receiver and kick returner Reggie Barlow. And then we're going to wrap up the show with another TNT rookie tonight. Former Patriots and Raiders running back J.R. Redmond will join us. So we've got another great show in store for you tonight. So, folks, like we tell you, please sit back, relax, and let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next couple of hours. But let's get things started with calling in my co-host, and now in the thawing of New England after the deep freeze of earlier this week, Mr. Bob-Lazzari. Bob, how you hanging in there, my friend?
Hey, Chris. We're back to freezing, though. I mean, it thawed for one day, but it's about 25 now. The wind chill's about 10, so we're back to freeze mode. But as I was telling you off the air, Chris, probably the 2 coldest nights I've ever seen, and I've been in New England my whole life, was last Saturday and Sunday. Minus 17 on the thermometer, well past negative 30 wind chill. And if anybody's never been in those kind of conditions, it's very hard to explain what it's like. It's you get nauseous when you go outside. It's a very strange feeling when it's that cold. It's something you can't explain, but a lot of damage, Chris, a lot of pipes bursting, and we had that storm a week before that where the heavy snow on power lines, a lot of people without power, and it's been a nightmare, nightmarish 10 days. And I also told you off the air, it went from minus 17 to 50 hours later was 55 degrees. So we had over a 70-degree jump in a 2-day stretch. That can only happen in New England, folks. And again, one of the segments here, Chris, should be weekly, the weather in New England, because I could talk all day about it. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you got to imagine, Bob, with all the snow that you guys had, right? You were talking about the storm before, and then you get that deep freeze, and then for the crazy wild swing that you had, everything starts to melt and it freezes back. I got to imagine we're talking flooding. I got to imagine things started to thaw out and now refroze. I mean, it's just absolutely wild what you guys have been through in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think it was Tuesday morning. Yes, Tuesday morning they said it was one of the worst travel mornings ever. I had the day off, but it was crash upon crash, jackknife tractor trailers. People they didn't realize that the rain that day had just froze a little bit, just enough overnight to make the morning commute. It was totally brutal, and a lot of women I know that work in traffic said that was the busiest day they've ever had in their careers. So it's been nonstop stuff like that. So let's hope for let's hope for spring. That's about all I can say.
And that's not too far off on the horizon.
Yeah, one day.
And Bob, I got to apologize to you and our listeners. I've got a touch of the flu, the whole nine, with the body aches and the runny nose, a bit of a cough.
Man.
So If I sound a little nasal tonight, that's why. Please, forgive me for if I sound like I got a clothespin on my nose. I kind of feel like I do because I'm breathing through my mouth here. So, excuse me if we come off a little, or if I come off sounding a little badly.
Well,
Bob,
Chris, I told you, I had just first time I got out exercising in a week today, and I basically can't move right now. So we're the walking wounded here. We'll try to get past the 2 hours. I think we can do it.
I think we can. Yeah, we'll tape an aspirin to it, and we'll be fine.
Got it.
Bob, I wanted to get your reaction to a couple of things here before we get started. And first off is what seems to be more and more skeletons coming out of Peyton Manning's closet. Who would have guessed we'd ever be saying something like this? But first we heard about the HGH that was delivered to his wife a couple years back during the season that Peyton had to sit out because of his neck injury, and now we're starting to read about allegations of sexual assault, which go back to his days at the University of Tennessee, a case that was sort of swept under the rug based on what we're hearing from that the Manning family tried to use their influence to sweep that thing under the rug. So according to several newspaper articles that are out there on this topic, I'm just curious, what do you make of the news that maybe Peyton Manning isn't the squeaky clean guy that we always pictured he was?
Well, I think obviously that's a good point, Chris. And as we've always had this Peyton Manning kind of love affair that at least he hasn't won as much as some other players we know up here in New England, but he's always been respected as being a hard playing guy and always on a straight path. And if you read more about this story, I mean, this goes back to his college days. It happened 20 years ago. But it's kind of disturbing, Chris. It's just a matter of how bad it was. It's not a question of if he did anything. It's just what he did was very, very inappropriate. And the ironic thing is, Chris, it could have just been all done with. I mean, he had a $300,000 settlement with the university. But he had to come out with that book he wrote, which kind of basically smeared the woman a little more, and she got a little perturbed at that. And that's what opened up this whole can of worms and bad planning on his people's part. So, but it is kind of disturbing what happened. I know he was basically a kid at the time, but it just kind of it shows you kind of just watch what you're doing at all times, folks. It's a different society we live in now.
Yeah, no, I mean, to your point, it was very inappropriate. At least what we're reading about that. If that's exactly how it happened, it's completely inappropriate. It doesn't matter if you're 15, 19, 29, 49, inappropriate for what happened, and shame on Peyton if that's the truth. Yeah, very disappointing news. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And to your point, Bob, he could have let it all go away, but if you want to go back and reopen those can of worms and then try to continue to smear this poor lady's reputation, I mean, it makes it even worse to me in my mind. Shame on you, right? It's bad enough what you did, and if you guys came to a settlement and you both moved on from it, okay, whatever. But now you want to go and write a book and try to reopen that and smear this lady's name again. I mean, it's hurt her career and several other things. I mean, come on, I don't get it, Bob. And the other sort of piece to this, Bob, that always makes me wonder, if this going back to the HGH story, if this were someone in baseball, if this were a Clayton Kershaw or Felix Hernandez or insert superstar baseball player name here, everyone when you hear about HGH, everyone when it's associated with a baseball player, everyone loses their minds about having taken HGH or PEDs of any nature, and it ruins all of their achievements. But I haven't heard a whole lot of public outcry regarding Manning's records, if he took HGH or any other PED. And Bob, in your estimate, why the double standard in sports? Why are PEDs so horrible if you're a baseball player, but if you're a football player, no big deal?
I think it all goes back, Chris, believe it or not. I think it all goes back to your Ken Caminiti and your Jose Canseco's. That's when it really first broke, and that was all baseball related. It didn't say that, wasn't happening in the NFL at all, but it started getting all the ink and play in the media as a baseball story. and it stayed there. And then we found out more, and they did more digging, and they found out more. Meanwhile, they didn't do as much digging in the NFL. They kind of said, well, it's a big man's game, but, that you would taint records in baseball, maybe wouldn't in football. But I think that's your answer right there. I think it first came out as a problem in baseball. Although, looking back now, Chris, do you really know if they were taking it in football before baseball, vice versa?
Oh,
but it was guys
right.
like Caminiti and Canseco who actually came out and spoke about it, and it kind of it smeared the game of baseball first, and I think it's still like that now. And we got to the point where let's clean up the game. And it seems like they've made some strides here and there. Football is kind of in the middle right now. Football is kind of your Teflon sport, Chris. Let's face it too. It is ranked number one now. It's past baseball. It's unisex. It's everything, and it's almost Teflon to the point where even scandals like this aren't going to hurt it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. We all know the NFL's king. It owns a day of the week. It owns Sundays, for half the year. So, it's just interesting to me. And our good friend and our announcer Joe Lajanusa, it always drives Joe nuts that football always seems to get a pass, but anything happening in baseball, it goes under a microscope and people lose their minds over stuff like this. But it never seems to stick. To your point, Teflon to the NFL. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on in the show. All right, everyone, like we do here every week on Thursday Night Tailgate, we want to send out a big hello and a bigger thank you to our military personnel listening in around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. First, to our military personnel, thank you for listening and for doing what you do to protect all of us every day. For everyone else listening, thank you as well for doing that. We appreciate you listening, and it's an honor for us to think that folks around the world are listening to Thursday Night Tailgate. But we hope you'll also join in with us in saying thank you to our brave men and women currently serving to protect our freedoms and our liberties. If you see a member of our military out and about, in the airport, on the street, at a restaurant, please stop for a moment and tell them thank you. They are our real heroes. We also want to thank our veterans for your service and the sacrifices that you and your families made for us. A big thank you as well to Sean Cruz and the wonderful folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. It is such an honor for us to have Thursday Night Tailgate be a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. And veterans, please continue to check out globalvoiceforveterans.org for news and articles that are both interesting and beneficial, specifically geared towards you. Again, globalvoiceforveterans.org. TNT is also sponsored by the great folks over at Kyvan Foods, owned by our good friend and former Falcons and Bengals tight end and TNT Hall of Famer Reggie Kelly. If you want to be king of the grill, folks, it's a must that you use Kyvan's sweet barbecue sauce, ranked number 15 in the world right now by Barbecue Superstars. This barbecue sauce is a must for any big game or any tailgate you're going to be a part of. It's available at Walmarts and Kroger's throughout the southeast and the eastern half of the United States at Kroger's. For locations, online orders, and recipes, check out their website at Kyvan82.com. Kyvan is spelled K-Y-V-A-N. And if your local Walmart doesn't happen to carry Kyvan Sweet Barbecue Sauce, well, request it. I'm sure they'll be happy to add it to their shelves for you. TNT is also sponsored by Dr. Peter Candelora and the great folks over at Coastal Orthopedics. Folks, you hear me say it every week on this show. If it hurts when you get out of bed in the morning or you're simply just tired of living with joint pain, well, stop and do what the gridiron greats do to get relief, and that's contact Coastal Orthopedics. For more information, check them out online at bone-dr.com. Like Bob and I were saying a moment ago, folks, baseball season is coming up fast. Pitchers and catchers are getting ready to report. If you love the game of baseball, you and your family have got to go check out the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. It is a very cool experience for everyone in the family because you get to walk their live production line and see the bats being manufactured right there in front of you. To find out more information about the museum and to book your visit, go to sluggermuseum.com. We also want to welcome our new sponsor, one of our friends from over on the golf side on Next on the Tee, and that's the French Lick Resort. Folks, you are not going to find a better place to stay and play golf or just to simply relax and enjoy life than the French Lick Resort. If you've ever wondered what it would be like if you're a golfer to play in a major golf tournament, you can do it year-round on their Pete Dye course, which was home for last season's Senior PGA Championship and the LPGA Legends Championship. They've also got the Donald Ross designed course, the site of Walter Hagen's PGA Championship victory back in 1924. Got a great spa, and oh, by the way, a casino right there on the property as well, my friends. To find out more information and to book your stay, go to FrenchLick.com. All right, now joining us on the Kaiven Foods guest line in our weekly 12th Man segment is Sports One Marketing CEO and best-selling author David Meltzer, and tonight his special guest is Michelle Patterson, CEO of the Women's Network. Dave, good evening, my friend. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. It sounds like I'm doing better than you with that Demi Moore voice of yours. Are you doing okay, Chris?
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, I'm sure you're doing much better than me.
I think it's kind of sexy. I would go with it.
Oh, that's
all right. Well, now there's one vote for staying. Maybe I'll just keep a cold year round. Thank you, Michelle.
You're right. There's my feminist right on time. Thank you, Michelle. Well, I am so excited because, obviously we have some interesting news with Peyton Manning, and I want to get, a true sports view from what I
I think we lost Dave. Michelle, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Hey, that's good news. I guess Dave must have hit a bad cell or something. While we wait for him to come back and dial back into the show, Michelle, tell everybody about what you're doing and what the Women's Network is all about.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So I have the honor of producing the largest conference for women globally, the largest, longest running. We're in our 30th year. And it's always been produced by the governor's office. I took it over in 2011. Very big shoes that I stepped into with Maria Shriver, taking it to a whole new level. And we have 200-plus speakers that come out from around the world. And we have, anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20,000 people that come. And there's guests from the Dalai Lama to Oprah to across the board. So it's exciting. Yeah. We're doing some big things.
Awesome. Chris, sorry. Chris, I didn't mean for you to drop me just because I was making fun of you. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, see, that's what you get, my friend. You got to be careful when I have the disconnect button at my disposal.
I love it. Well, now you know what a big timer I brought onto the show. But I really have a few questions for Michelle, not to cut off her fame and fortune, because she has this great perspective. Michelle, I'm just curious, for someone in your position, and I want to get into how you became the first woman to be I think it's is it the Person of the Year or whatever for the World Boxing Council, and they invited you back a second year?
I'm very, very, very proud of that honor. It's the WBC, the World Boxing Council. So at their 52nd annual conference, they had 192 countries represented, and I was named their first Women of the Year after 52 years. So I feel like I represent all women coming in and had an opportunity to raise up the belt and say, this is for all the women. So it was really, really exciting, and it's because of the work that we've been doing. And I want to definitely say thank you to Mauricio Sullivan, the president of WBC, for recognizing the importance of identifying and spotlighting women and just the impact that they have in the sports world.
That's an amazing, to break into that world, to me, was unbelievable. Now, I'm going to ask you a hard question here, and I'm sorry for doing it, but I'm just curious because you are a woman of sport. You're an icon, in my opinion, of equality but fairness. How do you look on what the media, for example, is doing to Peyton Manning? So you got a guy who lived a really great life and had a really fair career, treating everyone nicely. And he when he was 19 years old, he did something stupid at the school, and they settled for that. And then he wrote that this woman had a vulgar mouth and got sued again, and he settled with her again. And now it seems to me, from a male perspective, there's two things that I think as I turn 41. I hope nobody holds me accountable for what I did before I was 21. And two, I hope nobody holds me accountable for what my dad said. And I was wondering what your perspective is on Peyton Manning.
Well, first of all, if you were held accountable, you'd be they'd have a field day with you. So that's the tough thing. It's hard because again he's well known, and to be in the public eye like he is, and to constantly, it's you can't get a break. It's that constant, and again at a young age. So I. Having been in that circle and seen, it's frustrating. You have look at from a political standpoint, even individuals running for office, you look at that, you think I don't want any part of that, because I don't want to be under the scrutiny and under the spotlight. So I just when it goes to that young age and again having it come up over and over. Clearly he's come to the table and been very remorseful. So I tend to look at it a little bit differently. And it's, and there's always two sides to every story. Unless you're, physically in that situation, we oftentimes don't have all the pieces. We didn't lose.
Dave, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I thought you cut me off again for asking a tough question. Well, I think it's just karma, because I have all this interest, not to blow you up, Chris, but all this interest in our show. And, I was on the phone with some pretty big wigs today about the show, and they were so complimentary of you. And, and I said, well, that's because Chris keeps me on there for a few minutes, and bam, you keep dropping me now. I'm sure they're all listening. So, and I brought my star guest on, which is even worse. So, Michelle, moving past that, tell us a little bit about what you have. It would take you 6 hours, but what you have coming up, and where people can reach out. You have some big events coming up, and I'd love you to share. This is an inspirational segment. What you have going on, and the purpose of it, and where it's at, et cetera, and how they can reach you.
Yeah, so we're physically based out of UC Irvine, the Cove, and what we're doing on March 8th, actually we have an event this evening, so every month we throw these various events that teach and really educate women and men on how to live their best life. And one of the things that we're doing is we have partnered with unify.org. They're an organization that does everything from Earth Day to World Peace Day, and they've got reach of 80 million. Great partner reached out to us and said, hey, you're running the largest organization for women globally. Let's partner together and let's do International Women's Day. So that's scheduled for March 8th. You can go to Women Network, and it's WOMEN network.com. And we've got individuals from all over the world that are going to be live streaming in. They're creating what we're referring to as circles, anywhere from 5 to 50 people that will be coming in, and we will break the Guinness Book of World Records, where we'll have the largest group of women collectively coming together. And so in each of your time zones across the board, whether it's Australia, Switzerland, China, and then at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we will go ahead and we will do a broadcast where we'll be highlighting various women in all different parts of the world, and just talking about how women are really having an impact in our world and what they're up to and the things that they're doing and how they're creating their best lives. So love to have your listeners a part of that. That gears up to our December 7th and 8th which is the California Women's Conference out of Long Beach, and we're celebrating our 30th year. So I know you're going to be there in full force, Meltzer, and I'd love both of you there broadcasting live and so forth. But it's a pretty spectacular event. It's some of the best shopping you'll ever experience, and it truly is a global summit. We're doing the largest awards ceremony Globally, we'll be passing out in our version of our Oscars. So we've got just a lot of exciting things, and would love to have your listeners run with us and as we partner together.
That's awesome. And Chris, maybe you could, before you drop me again, give Michelle a softball question, something easy for her.
Yeah, we're talking with Sports One Marketing CEO David Meltzer and Michelle Patterson, CEO of the Women's Network here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Michelle, curious just to get your thoughts, on the door starting to open for women more in professional sports. And we saw our good friend Dr. Jen Welter getting a coaching internship with the Cardinals last summer, Sarah Thomas becoming the first female NFL referee, and recently the Bills hired Catherine Smith as a full-time special teams quality control coach. How do you feel about the progression of women getting opportunities in areas that were, unheard of not all that long ago?
Well, the organizations that are creating those opportunities are brilliant. I mean, bottom line is, it's the bottom line. I mean, if you look at it, first of all, it's the right thing to do. And it really is about tapping into 100% of the talent pool, not just 50%. So we'd have the same conversation if we were talking about, if men weren't represented in this space. But when you look at it, and I love, there's a quote from, that's out there that says, we're so excited, about the State of the Union for the economy because we're unleashing women. And when you look at just from a dollars and cents standpoint, companies that are having women in key level positions are stronger, and they're more profitable and they're doing better. And when you look at women, you have women representing 78% of the consumer and 85% of the decision maker. And in, Dave Meltzer's household, it's like 99% of the decision maker. But that's what we've got is we've got, women that are coming in and really, I made this comment. I said this, question. I said, who do you think purchases the most beer, out there? Who are the biggest beer purchasers? What do you guys think?
Wow. It seems like you're setting me up to say women, so I'm going to go with women.
Oh, yeah. See, you're a smart guy. So women are the biggest purchasers. They're the ones. They're at the store. They're buying the things. They're bringing it home. So it's amazing when you start looking at just the numbers and the statistics and how much women are going online, how much they're the consumer, all across the board. So it's the largest transference of wealth that's happening, historically right now. And so different organizations are capturing that and wanting to make sure. And you look at these boards and you think, okay, I've got one female that's sitting on the board. Well, she might as well talk to herself. I mean, that's as far as the conversation. Then you get two, and it's like, okay, that's better, but it really needs to be 33.3%, 3 out of the 10, in order to make an impact and make a difference. And again, the studies show, and the stats are coming back, going back to, from a sports analogy and looking at these stats, is those are the companies that are excelling are when they have that diversity and when there is that balance and bringing in women into those key level positions.
That's great.
That's awesome. Chris, I have 5 women. I have 4 women in my home, but I have 5 opinions all the time. It's an amazing thing that happens.
Michelle, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can follow you and get more information about the Women's Network.
Absolutely. So if you go to women, it's WOMEN network.com. You can check out all the different events that we have going on, and you can be a part of. We're actually going to be live streaming. We've got an event that starts at 7. We'll start at 6. I'm sitting in the parking lot, and people are jumping into my car, grabbing books and things like that. So I was hoping I wasn't the one that was dropping the call, but we've got lots of different events we'd love to have you a part of.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Michelle. Great having you as part of the show. We hope you'll come back and do it again with us sometime. You're fantastic.
Oh, well, you are fantastic, and definitely I love what you guys are doing, and I love that you make it fun. I think, if we're not having fun, then you should stop doing what you're doing. So I think that's the motto. Right. Yep.
Exactly.
So making money, having fun. So have a great night, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dave, before we let you go, my friend, let our listeners know how they can keep track of you online and over social media and what events you've got coming up.
Sure. The Meltzer Mission is taking off, so go to meltzermission.com. Our app is up and working to remind yourself to be grateful and give thank you cards to people. That's free on Apple or Android. I'm just leaving the Irvine Public School Foundation, where they awarded us the top 100 companies in America. I mean, I'm sorry, in Irvine. I wish America, but we're getting there. And then just recently honored by Variety, which will be next Thursday at the Oscars as the Sports Humanitarian of the Year with Matthew McConaughey, Seth Rogen, Mark Ruffalo, and we're very excited about that honor. And more to come on that as I may be able to even broadcast from next Thursday's show from the montage at the Oscars. So it's all just an amazing experience. I also want to thank you and Bob and Angelo for what you did at the Pro Bowl and, of course, everything that you do for the Armed Forces and all your great listeners. So thank you both, and just enjoy your evening.
All right, Dave. Same to you. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon. And be careful out there. Losing to cell. Be careful while you're out there driving around, my friend.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, take care. That's David Meltzer, Sports One Marketing CEO. And again, his guest tonight was Michelle Patterson of the Women's Network. Really great stuff from both of those folks. We look forward to catching up with both again really soon. We've got our next guest, Paul Alexander, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Paul right after this word from our friends over at Kyvan Foods.
Add great flavor to your next tailgate party with Kyvan Salsas. Former NFL tight end Reggie Kelly created these salsas for dipping chips and much more. In hot and mild flavors, Kyvan Salsas make a great marinade. They are terrific in meatloaf and are super toppers for everything from baked potatoes to scrambled eggs. It's a great ingredient to enjoy in a variety of family favorite meals. And some people say Kyvan Salsa is a meal to itself. With all the possibilities, Kyvan is truly salsa with soul. Kyvan salsas are also made from natural ingredients, and they are preservative-free. So look for Kyvan, that's K-Y-V-A-N, at area Walmart stores or online. Click on the Kyvan logo on our website to check retail and online locations. More information at Kyvan82.com.
This is Christine Lisi, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL stars go to tell their stories with Chris Mascaro and bob-lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Paul Alexander. You've heard me say it before when Paul has joined us, folks, but one of the many blessings that we had last year was getting to know and have Paul join us, on the show several times. He's become a wonderful friend. He's one of the best sports anchors on TV or radio anywhere in the country. It just so happens he's one of the best up in the city of Pittsburgh, covering the Pirates and the Penguins and doing their pre- and post-game shows for Root Sports. Also covers the Steelers, and we are very thankful to have him back with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Paul, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Paul.
Gentlemen, it's good. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So, Paul, interested to kind of get your thoughts on what we saw at Super Bowl 50 and the fact that the Steelers were a ball on the ground away from beating Denver. Is the city of Pittsburgh kind of walking around saying to themselves, "What if?"
They always do. I love a city where the franchise is Super Bowl or bust. Any year that doesn't end with a Lombardi is a disappointment. I love that. But that being said, when you consider the injuries, you play that game without your starting left tackle, your Pro Bowl center, probably the second or third overall best running back in all of football, and you still make it as competitive as it was. I think everybody was pretty happy with the effort they saw from their team. I don't think there's any question that, every year after that last loss, the season-ending loss, it's always about next year. But you need to just look at the futures bet in Vegas, and you can see that Pittsburgh's not off base when they start thinking and believing and talking about next year really could be our year, because it really could be. that offense, when it's firing on all cylinders, which unfortunately it has not had a real opportunity to do so because of injury, when you look at what Keith Butler did with probably an average to above average defense, when you're able to take the ball away like that defense did, when you're able to create an opportunistic defense, which is kind of the current way to play defense in the NFL. I mean, apologies to Denver. They play it the old-fashioned way. They just suffocate you and beat your quarterback up, which I'm a big fan of as well. But with what Keith Butler had to work with and what he was able to do, I think everybody, while there is that what-if factor, because like as you mentioned, Chris, ball on the ground, I think everybody knows, including Denver, if that fumble doesn't happen, it's a different outcome. But it did. That's the reality. And that's the way sports is the greatest reality show on TV. It happens. It's not scripted. What happens, happens. You deal with it. But, yeah, I think there's that what-if factor. But, you know, here in Pittsburgh, it's always about next year. It always is.
And speaking of next year, when you look at the current roster, Paul, who are some guys that, you know, whether it's, you know, poor play or salary cap issues, that sort of thing, who are some of the guys that you're hearing on the roster that may not be back there next season?
Well, you have a lot of unrestricted free agents. What do you do with Kelvin Beachum? Do you reach out and extend Le'Veon Bell? You know, Marquise Pouncey, I mean, is he a guy right now, as well as they played without him? Trades rarely happen in the NFL except for on, you know, draft day, unfortunately. I would love trades to become a bigger part of the NFL because I think so many teams, you know, find themselves mid-season a player or two away from being a competitive team. But with the trade deadline as early as it is and the salary cap situation the way it is, you know, deals are just tough to come by. But why not look to trade some guys? That's just not part of the way the NFL works. You look at, like, the NHL and Major League Baseball, some of the World Championships, some of the Stanley Cups have been won by those trade deadline deals. I mean, the NFL is still the greatest game going in this country. There's no question. I mean, it's a $9 billion a year industry. They're the king. But it could be even better if trades would become a part of it. And I just throw that out there because right now, Marquise Pouncey and his propensity to get those season-ending injuries and the way they play in, you know, his stead, you know, why not take a look at something like that as a possibility?
Right.
I don't think they're going there, but you know what? It would be more fun if the league in general, would just kind of look. I mean, granted, you remember Mike Ditka with the Saints and that big trade that he made.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Herschel Walker deal, if we go way back. There's been blockbuster trades in the NFL, but they're just not a part of the lexicon of the league. But, I mean, that's a really roundabout way of saying I'm not sure exactly how the Steelers are going to act on their own. They've done a great job over the years of identifying who to keep. But unfortunately for the Steelers, and one reason they haven't really been quite to where they have wanted to be, they have always identified, usually in year 2, certainly by year 3, the draft picks that they have signed, they would always know when to extend. And they have now, especially at the outside linebacker position, they haven't had guys step forward and identify themselves as, yes, you're the guy we need to keep. They have so many issues. They've had so many issues with those players not stepping up and not being the guy that was just a no-brainer that you extend and sign. That's why they've been in a cap situation where they're always up against it. They have no cap room, and they find themselves with, signing cornerbacks to big contracts that you don't even want, that you're probably going to cut. And we know who we're talking about there. They have put themselves into some strange situations with players that have not performed to the level in which they should have.
Yeah, and to that point, and you're talking about Cortez Allen a moment ago.
He's gone.
Now we know
James. Let him go.
We know James Harrison is coming back for one more year. So speaking of extending guys, is Jarvis Jones? Is he back? I mean, I know he's got one more year, but do they bring him back? And is he even a guy that you would look at extending beyond next season if he's back?
I don't think so. That's the whole point. It's the Jarvis Joneses of the world that have not distinguished themselves as that guy.
Right.
To be in the Steelers would draft guys. I always use Brett Kiesel as a perfect example. 2 years as an unbelievable special teams guy. Then he gets repetitions on the D-line. Then he becomes the guy. And all along, of course, you keep paying him more. You keep extending his contract. You go back to Joey Porter and then James Harrison. And guys would always show what they had, year 2, year 3, and you would know, yeah, this is the guy that we have to keep. And the thing that the Steelers always did better than everyone else, not taking the free agents that were available, but knowing and identifying the players of their own that they needed to keep. But unfortunately, they have been sabotaged by their own guys like Cortez Allen, Jarvis Jones, guys simply not performing to a level where they identified themselves as guys you simply could not let go. To me, those are guys you have to let go. But they actually overpaid them. I mean, Cortez Allen, because of their complete lack of depth in the secondary, and particularly at corner, they gave him a ridiculous contract because they didn't have anybody else. And that's insane. And their cap situation is just hurt even further by that signing. So I think there's going to be a lot of departures, and in a lot of ways it's going to be addition by subtraction.
Bob, questions for Paul?
Paul, it's great to speak with you again, and I want to stick on the Steelers for a second. To me, Paul, Heath Miller has been one of the most underrated players in the NFL over the last decade. If you mention his name anywhere but Pittsburgh, they say, yeah, I think he's a tight end out there. But when you look, I just did a little research on him this afternoon. I didn't really realize, first of all, 11 years, all in Pittsburgh. I think he's missed about 5 games in his career, Paul. The numbers are there. Never heard the guy complain. Now, he's going to turn 34 during the season next year. What have you heard about him and maybe their draft thoughts in the near future, Paul? 34 years old as a tight end in that league is tough, but he's still playing quality football.
Yes and no, Bob, and it's great to be in touch with you again. For the first time in a long time, Heath Miller had drops of significance. I mean, maybe the first time in his career, and it's stunning. It was kind of like watching, unfortunately, Heath Miller was never as spectacular as Troy Polamalu, but certainly every bit as awesome in the fact that he was always doing great things, always. Now, at 34, and with the miles, on the body, there's certainly been kind of a step back. I don't think there's any question about that. He would probably be the first one to say that. Now, when you combine his ability to block, obviously with an inexperienced left tackle that they had in there, he was certainly, considerably weighed upon as a blocker. But they need to address that situation. They would love to get the next Heath Miller. I don't think there's any question about that. Tyler Eifert was available, and I thought maybe he would have been a guy that would have been the next. I mean, they've had opportunities at really good and talented tight ends in the draft, but because Heath Miller was still well above average, they didn't go there. Look for this draft. If there is a talented tight end. And the kid from Penn State, Jesse James, is certainly a guy that they love his potential. Certainly not nearly the complete player that Heath is, but they like his potential, but he's not going to be – Heath Miller was a first-round draft pick, performed like one his entire career. He has been a great player, but he's not a great player anymore. He's a very good player. I think this year will certainly be a productive year going forward for him, but his replacement needs to be identified very soon.
And about Le'Veon Bell, Paul, by the way, it's his birthday today, 24 years old. My goodness. Chris, I have socks that are 24 years old. So.
Oh, my gosh,
yeah. 24-year-old guy. What have you heard, Paul, as far as his comeback, the rehab? This is a very big man. What do you expect from him? Tell us what you've heard about him.
Well, there's not this side of Antonio Brown a harder worker. If you go on, either YouTube or Instagram, I think he even has some things on Facebook where he shows you his workouts. I mean, this guy is diligent. But we've now had, 2 season-ending knee injuries. One, this particular one, a lot more serious than the first one. The beauty of it is, and here's another thing that, only the real true Steeler fans understand, and I'll go back to Lawrence Timmons, and he was Mike Tomlin's first-round draft pick. You notice that the Steelers always do draft juniors in college that are going to be extremely young. I mean, right now you just mentioned Le'Veon Bell turning 24 today. There are players in the draft coming up here in April that are going to be every bit or maybe a year younger than Le'Veon Bell, who already has 2 years in the league. The Steelers do that by design. They draft guys very young because they want to maximize their years of being productive. Le'Veon Bell is a special back. There was not a big drop-off without him in the offense. But at the same time, he's special. So I think the Steelers have a big decision to make about whether, okay, these 2 knee injuries, they haven't slowed him down. They were kind of flukes. And as long as Burfict isn't around, he should be okay. I think they have to look real hard into an extension for Le'Veon Bell because while running backs are very replaceable and the tread is very thin, meaning running backs, you look at some of the great ones, they were kind of flashes where, the greatness kind of came and went pretty quickly. But I think he's a guy that they better find some cap room and you better extend him and keep him around because he is really a dynamic, whether it be a back out of the backfield or a guy that's going to carry the ball 20 to 25 times a game. He is a game-changing running back in the NFL.
So, Paul, as we look at some of the other positions for next season, I'm curious to get your thoughts on who's the number 2 quarterback at the start of next season.
Well, Michael Vick is gone probably out of the league completely. I think they're going to give Bruce, Gradkowski one more shot. He is a veteran. They really let Charlie Batch hang around for a long time. Being Charlie Batch was the kind of guy, and I kind of go back and forth with Steeler fans sometimes because I don't think they appreciated nearly how good he was. Charlie Batch was a guy very late in his career that was able to go down to Baltimore when Baltimore was still, it was
right.
1 and 1A in the AFC. He was able to go down to Baltimore and win a game on the road as a backup quarterback. To me, Bruce Gradkowski is still that guy. Granted, when it's a shoulder injury and it's your throwing shoulder, I mean, that's what he's dealing with. He's going to have to prove himself in camp that he's healthy enough and the arm's strong enough. But I think he will be the backup quarterback. Landry Jones, and how many guys have we seen in the NFL, guys, where a guy's thrown into the fire in the second half of a game and acquits himself quite nicely. And you're thinking, okay, wow, maybe we found something here. Then when it's a full week of preparation and the other team has a full week of preparation to try and diagnose and get after this guy, all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, you know what? He's not the guy. And that's exactly, sadly, what happened to Landry Jones. He went from a guy that came into a half and against Arizona, he was like, wow, hey, check this guy out. He's underrated. Maybe that preseason where he looked awful really was kind of a fluke. This guy can play. Then he's given the full week of preparation, all the reps with the ones. But guess what? That defense, the opposition, they're game planning to shut him down and stop him, and that's exactly what they did. So, in my opinion, it's still Bruce Gradkowski's job to lose, but he has to prove that he's healthy.
Switch gears a little bit with you, Paul, and let's go to baseball. And I was tickled pink and various other colors when I saw today that the Pirates are going to be wearing their 1979 throwback uniforms for Sunday home games with the gold shirts and the black pants and the pill-top hats. How great is that going to be?
Oh, it's awesome, especially when I'll be sitting next to Teak on some of those Sundays and thinking back to him wearing those uniforms. So, yeah, I think everybody's pretty stoked about that. I don't think there's any question. Pitchers and catchers have already reported. It's exciting to be in Bradenton, Florida. I'm jealous of anybody that's down there right now because baseball is now an actual happening here in Pittsburgh again. It's real. It's tangible. It's exciting. There's anticipation. There's excitement. That ballpark is electric. Clint Hurdle has done an amazing job. Neil Huntington and his front office staff. If Pirate fans aren't buying into their know-how and their ability to put, really budget-conscious, talented teams together, well, they just haven't been paying attention. They won 98 freaking games last year. And, they did it the old-fashioned way. They pitched, they played defense, they manufactured runs. It's going to be a new-look roster. No Pedro Alvarez, no Neil Walker, a couple of guys that I'm going to really miss watching play, even though Pedro became a bit of an adventure and kind of a liability defensively. He hit some of the hardest, longest home runs I've ever seen in my life this side of Willie Stargell. So I'm going to miss seeing some of that. I love Neil Walker personally. He was a good friend and a great guy, and I love his family. I'm going to miss him. I'm not even going to – I don't even think I could watch a Mets game, because to see him in a Mets uniform is going to be something like seeing Joe Namath as a Ram. I mean, it's just like, it's unsettling. Franco Harris is a Seahawk. Neil Walker is a Met. Is not going to sit well with me, but – like everything else, you have to move on and adjust. But I'm pretty pumped up for Pirate baseball, guys. I really am.
That's great. Bob, one more for Paul before we let him go?
Yeah, I'm going to stick on the Pirates, Paul. I got to ask you about McCutchen. He'll be a free agent after this year, and this is a guy I think he's going to make $14 million this year. Up here in the Northeast, we have teams that are definitely going to be willing to shell out $20 million plus, and we know that Pirates, the payroll is always down there. What's going to become of him, Paul?
It's going to be very interesting. He, in a kind of, I think early strike as a PR move and as a great move from a public relations standpoint. He's already come out and said he wants to spend his entire career in Pittsburgh. So he puts the onus back on the Pirates, because if they're going to pay market value for Andrew McCutchen, who also said, I need that MVP back. That's the kind of talk he's already thrown out there. How about this for a guy that you have to love as a Pirate fan? I need to get that MVP back. Guys are getting like, yeah, man, that's awesome. Then he says, I want to spend my entire career in Pittsburgh. So if he goes out and wins an MVP this year and the Pirates don't sign him, well, to throw a very intended pun at you, there could be a mutiny on that Pirate ship, because there is no way the fans are going to stick, now that the fans are showing up, now that the TV contract from my good friends at Root Sports is, it's certainly not what, it's not the $300 million they're getting in L.A. or whatever they're getting with the Yes Network in New York, but it's real dollars. And, the money that the national TV contracts bring in for Major League Baseball, the money is there to lock Andrew McCutchen up and make him a Pirate for life. I'm throwing down the gauntlet right now to the Nuttings and the Pirate brass. Sign that man for life. That's where he wants to be. Make it happen. Pay him fair market value, and do not let that man walk the plank. Keep him right here in Pittsburgh.
There you go. That's perfect. Paul, before we let you go, remind our listeners again how they can follow you. They can find you on TV and then also online and over social media as well.
P. Alexander 44 on Twitter. Obviously, Root Sports Pittsburgh. I'm here, there, and again. Can't wait to get moving on some baseball. Just got word that Doc Emmerich, the voice of the NHL, will be doing a Pirate game on.
Oh, is that right?
During spring training, yes. I mean, he's a lifelong Pirate fan, and he said it's a dream come true. So there's just some exciting stuff going on with the Pirates, and the Penguins are heating up a little bit. Right when I got on with you, they were leading Detroit 3-2. So I'm pretty excited about the Penguins. Sidney Crosby's found his game again. A lot of good things happening here in the Burgh, guys, and it's so great to be back with you guys.
Our pleasure.
Paul, it's always a thrill and a privilege for us to have you on the show. You make it so much fun every time you come on. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night to be back with us, and I hope you'll do it again with us real soon.
Anytime, guys. You know that.
Thanks,
all right,
Paul.
Take care. We appreciate it. All the best to you and your family, my friend.
All right, take care, guys.
See you, Paul.
See you, Paul. That is Pittsburgh sports guru Paul Alexander. God bless, but Bob, I love every time that we get the opportunity to talk to him, and when he's excited, it gets me excited. And the Steelers are what the Steelers are, and we'll see what they do in the off season. But I don't know if you saw, but the Pirates coming back with the 79 unis on Sunday home games. You kidding me? With the pill hat and hopefully maybe a little rendition of the Stargell Stars. It doesn't get any better than that, Bob.
I'm hearing Sister Sledge in my head. Yeah, that's great
right.
stuff, Chris. Right? I mean, that's a lot of people became baseball fans because of that era, but that's great. And Paul, as far as a representative of Pittsburgh sports in general, he's not only a huge fan, Chris, but he's very unbiased. And He is, like you said, the guru of Pittsburgh sports, and if anyone needs to learn about what's going on, I urge you to follow Paul and keep track of what he's doing, because he's the best of the best right there.
Yes, he is. There's no question about it. Paul Alexander is the best, and we thank him for being a part of Thursday Night Tailgate tonight. All right, we're going to get to our next guest, Ron Heller, on the other side of this station identification.
Hi, this is former Rams QB Jim Everett, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, a.k.a. TNT, and it's explosive in here with my buddies, the hosts, Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari. And we're listening to all this on the Armed Forces Radio Network. So take it away, Ben.
All right, now making his TNT debut with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Ron Heller. Let me give you some background on Ron. He's from Grass Valley, California, which is about halfway between Sacramento and Reno, Nevada. In high school, he was a three-sports star, all-state in football, basketball, and track. Played his college ball at Oregon State, where he started out at nose tackle. They moved him to linebacker before he settled in at tight end his senior season. He was signed by the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent in 1986. He was claimed by the 49ers in 87, and he played 2 seasons there and was a part of their championship team that defeated the Bengals in Super Bowl 23. Played for the Falcons in 89 and then for the Seahawks in 90 and 92. In all, he had 84 receptions for 871 yards, and he scored 5 touchdowns. In 2005, Ron was inducted into the Idaho Athletic Hall of Fame, and we are honored that he's here with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Ron, Chris and Bob here. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Ron.
Chris and Bob, how are you guys doing?
Excellent.
Oh, fantastic, Ron, now that you're here. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Yeah, just enjoying this beautiful sunset here, looking over the ocean in Santa Barbara. Can't be too bad.
Yeah, no, it can't get much better than that. So, Ron, I want to start out tonight by going back to your time in high school. And as I was doing the research on you, Clark Fork High School in Idaho, and like I mentioned in your intro, you were a three-sport star there. Ultimately, you ended up choosing football, but why football over basketball or track?
Well, you know, basketball was a lot of fun, but I realized I was coming out of high school 6'3", 235 in white, and I wasn't probably going to make it much past there. So, you know, my football career looked a little more promising.
and you go on and you play at Oregon State, where I'm assuming other schools had to be in the mix trying to recruit you to come play football there. Talk about who else was in the mix and why ultimately you chose Oregon State.
Yeah, there was a lot of teams. I had a lot of offers coming out of high school. Fortunately, I had a great high school coach that played at Washington State, so he taught me a ton. And, ultimately it came down to where I could play at the Pac-10 level early in my career. And I didn't know it was going to be that early my freshman year, but I chose Oregon State because they only had one linebacker that was a senior ahead of me as I was coming in, and they went 0-11, so I figured, they're pretty crappy on the upswing. They can't get any worse. Got a pretty good chance to play for 4 years.
That's true. As I was looking back, early in the 80s is when you were there. Certainly not the glory years for the Beavers. 1 or 2 wins a year is kind of what they were averaging. As I was looking over Oregon State's record in 1981, you guys, you won your first game. You beat Fresno State. That was September 12th. And then the next W doesn't come until the following November 20th, 1982. 19 games in a row. There was a tie mixed in there earlier in the year against Washington State. So I was curious about that. They didn't get a lot of wins. Was it still fun to play the game and be playing it at that level, or at some point does the losing start to get old?
No, it was a blast playing. I mean, we had a great group of guys at Oregon State. We didn't have the horses that the big group did. We didn't have the depth because, when you're playing in a town, I mean, you talk about the town I grew up in Idaho was 400 people. I went to college in Corvallis, which is a town. So, when people are considering going to, University of Oregon or University of Washington or SC, they want to go to the city. They want to go and be a part of something. I mean, Oregon State is a town. So we never could get the depth, especially along the offensive line and defensive line. So, it was a struggle, wins and losses. But I tell you what, I still keep in touch with all my buddies, and it was a blast. I mean, it was
it was everything I thought it would be. And I got to start for 4 years, so that doesn't suck either.
I'm sure it doesn't. Bob, questions for Ron?
Yeah, Ron, it's great to speak with you. And I think back on the way I followed football in the '80s. It was all 49ers for me, and you landed there 87, and just checking out, I was doing a little looking back this afternoon at the rosters, and the coaching staff just blew my mind. You're talking head coach Bill Walsh. You had George Seifert on the defensive side, and you had Mike Holmgren as your QBs. These aren't coaches, Ron. These were geniuses and legends. Did you know it at the time, playing for these guys, that they would become the notoriety would be just off the charts?
No, you know what I mean? Because when I was there, it was mainly Joe Montana and Ronnie Lott. And Bill Walsh had a couple of Super Bowls, and then there was a bunch of role players. And little did I know there was going to be. I mean, every year now there's another 49er in the Hall of Fame. Every year. And they haven't even gotten to the offensive line that all played at least a decade in those teams. It's just it's crazy the amount of guys that come out. You can mention, Dennis Green, and I mean it just goes on and on and on, guys that went on to be head coaches or coordinators for a long time at both the college and the pro level. The talent on the coaching staff was just phenomenal, and I tell you what, and it was all breeded by Eddie DeBartolo and Bill Walsh, because it was the system, and everybody bought in, including the players, and it was just a phenomenal experience.
And you talk about buying in, Ron, and Chris knows my favorite players on teams are tight ends, because number one, I think they have to be selfless players, and number two, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me, they have to be some of the more intelligent players, because you have to know passing patterns, you have to know blocking schemes, and these days, especially, these guys line up all over the place. But back on those teams, you had guys like Craig and Rice, and I'm sure you didn't really mind at times. You want to get the ball, but you had to be so unselfish, and that's probably why those teams were so good.
It's true, and everybody was interjected into each other's position. I mean, we would go through training camp, and we'd put in 30 plays a day. I mean, it's crazy every day, and you had to know, okay, we're going to call this play, and if it's a different formation, you got to know what X is doing or Z is doing or the H back is doing. So you had to memorize 5 positions and know what the line calls were. So yeah, the offense wasn't for dummies, and so it's one of the reasons why they were so successful. Is mistakes were not tolerated. I mean, I was just an average guy, but I studied my butt off in the playbook, and there was a lot better athletes than me that came through that organization that didn't make it because they didn't study and they made mental mistakes, and it was not tolerated. And not only wasn't tolerated by the coaching staff, it wasn't tolerated by Joe and by Randy Cross and Ronnie Lott and even special teams. I mean, you talk about importance. I mean, we led the league in special teams and sent a Pro Bowler every year, and we were the dominant guys out there with JT, John Taylor returning kicks. It was a dominant organization. It was important all the way around to everyone.
We're talking to former San Francisco 49ers tight end Ron Heller on Thursday Night Tailgate. And Ron, as I was looking back over your game stats, you scored 3 touchdowns in 1987. 2 of them came against the Saints. And for those folks that don't remember, the 87 Saints were pretty darn good, especially defensively. They only lost 3 games that year. They had Ricky Jackson and Pat Swilling and Sam Mills and Von Johnson as their linebackers. You had success against those guys. What allowed you to have success against them?
It was all the system, and I can tell you one thing. I did not sleep the night before playing those guys. Those 4 linebackers were hell. I mean, it was no picnic. I mean, at least you go into New York and you play against, Lawrence Taylor, and you knew he was going to take half the game off. But these guys brought it every play, and I tell you what, it was tough. But it was game planning, and it was finding the soft zones and finding the areas where they weren't, and double teaming at the point of attack and getting those guys out of their system. But I was able to score 2 touchdowns, and this is kind of the guy that Bill Walsh is I started that game at home, and we were behind in the division, and we had just taken the lead and getting ready to kick the extra point to go up by 4. And I was on the extra point team, and my guy blocked the kick and returned it for a touchdown. And then we're in the fourth quarter, and I'm like, shit, here we go. I just blew the season. So what's Bill Walsh do? He calls me over and says, hey, I'm calling your number the next play. And it was like 3rd and 8. I did a little out and up down the seam, 38-yard touchdown. But that's the kind of guy he was. He got you right back on the horse. He believed in you, and you had to believe in yourself. And it was just it was a phenomenal experience to be able to play for a man like that.
And Ron, I'm curious. You made the comment a moment ago that when you were playing against the Giants, you knew LT would take half the game off. I had not heard that before. Is that something that you guys found, that there would be plays that throughout the game that he would take off?
Oh yeah. He would. Lawrence Taylor was such a physical specimen. If he went every single play as hard as he could, I mean, come on, he was 6'5", 255, 265. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. And, if he would have played hard every play, he would have had even better records. But, he didn't. I mean, he got tired, and, part of it's his lifestyle off the field. I'm a true believer of that. And he took a lot of plays off. I mean, there's one play that he told me, I got in a little fight with him on the field, and he got mad at me because I was holding, and he got mad, and he says, I'm going to kill your quarterback next play. And you know what? He did. And, he put my quarterback out of the game. And this is when I was with Seattle. And I was, just so happened to, I was in the huddle, and he told me that after the play. He says, I'm going to kill your quarterback next play. And I'm like, well, that's good because I'm going out for a pass. And they called the play for me to stay in a pass block. I was begging my quarterback to change the play and let me go out, and he didn't change it. And needless to say, my quarterback went out of the game all skinned up.
Wow. And Ron, as we've said, you're with the 49ers in '88 when they won it all. Guys beat the Bengals in Super Bowl 23. Curious, what was the Super Bowl experience like for you?
You know what? Growing up where I did, and getting into San Francisco and a small town guy, in that atmosphere was just unbelievable. I mean, to be in a room with thousands of media from around the world, with interpreters and cameras, and I mean, it was crazy. Because when you're at the 49ers, you have Jerry and Joe and all these superstars that have all the media. I was just a role player, and when you get there, I mean, you're answering questions for hours, and every day you walk in the locker room, you have a stack of clothes, and you got people beating down your door trying to get you to wear their shoes in the game, and it's like, man, this is like Christmas for a whole week. This is unbelievable. And the best thing about it is, that $38,000 check that we got for winning, when my season salary was only $70,000. So that was a nice little bonus.
Yeah, I bet that was. Bob, more for Ron?
Yeah, you guys were talking earlier about these guys making $14-15 million a year. I mean, I can't even imagine. My first year I made 50, 60 my second year, and 70 my third year, and these guys are throwing around. I heard that Durant from OKC might make $40 million next year. That's just unheard of. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is.
It is crazy, and Ron, I want to ask you, and I'm sure you've been asked tons of times before this about Montana himself. He was in his prime those couple of years you were there, and people have talked and said, well, he was surrounded by some great players, but then again, his intelligence and lack of mistakes, and as you said, his leadership abilities all seem to come into the equation. What do you remember from him as far as being some of his greatest strengths, and why is he in Canton right now?
You know what? He's the greatest quarterback ever because when Joe walked to the line of scrimmage, he was so prepared. He didn't go through progressions. You hear all these guys that go through their progressions. Joe walks up and sees cover two. He knows where he's going with the ball right now. He's waiting on you. Occasionally the ball will be, misthrown or they'll roll out of it, or somebody will miss an assignment and they'll get a pick on it. But, he knew where he was going with the ball right away. On the running game, he knew where to audible to on the running game. The unique thing about San Francisco offense is very rarely did we keep multiple guys in to block if guys were blitzing. We'd side adjust, and Joe knew where to go the ball right away on those mismatches with it, whether it was – that's why Roger Craig caught, 70 to 100 balls a year because, they're getting blitzed, the ball's out real quick, and Roger's got one-on-one move with a linebacker, which we'll take that all day long. So Joe was so smart in that system. And again, it's not a knock against Steve Young, but Steve didn't get any playing time for the longest time because he didn't pick up the system in time. So that's why Joe didn't let up, and Joe was so consistent because he was so good at that, and Steve didn't pick it up as quick. So, that's kind of the reason why Steve didn't get playing time early on in his career.
And we talked a little bit about your salary. I'm just thinking to myself, Ron, do you wish you had a dime for every person who've asked you over the years, could I see your Super Bowl ring?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it comes in handy now because I'm in finance and I'm on the road a lot. I'm over at the Morgan Stanleys and Wells Fargo offices because I manage a mutual fund. So, when I wear that into meetings, it's a great icebreaker, and it opens up a lot of doors, and it's a lot of fun to talk about all these guys and the stories that I have. And you talk about Joe Montana, what kind of guy he is. I go to San Francisco, and even though I was only there 3 years, Joe and I still have a glass of wine, or Joe and Jennifer and his wife and my wife get together for dinner. And again, I was nobody, but that's the kind of guy he is. He treated everybody the same, just like Bill Walsh, just like Eddie DeBartolo. Eddie DeBartolo still, answers my emails and phone calls if I want to call him for something. And again, I was an undrafted free agent, so that tells you what kind of men they were outside of football.
Now, we've always had that, and Chris knows, we've always had that impression, Ron, that regardless of what you thought about that team and the people who ran it, it was always a class organization.
It was from top to bottom, and the example of that is everybody that got a paycheck for the 49ers, whether you answered the phone or whether you cut the grass, you got a ring, and that's the way it was. And then I don't know if you guys heard about Eddie DeBartolo's Super Bowl party he had 7 or 8 years ago in Vegas. Brought all 5 Super Bowl teams back, and had a huge party, a couple of concerts, and it was a blast.
Wow. We're talking to former San Francisco 49ers tight end Ron Heller here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We've got our next guest, Reggie Barlow, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Reggie in just a moment. Ron, one more before we let you go. Like I mentioned in your intro, 2005, the Idaho Athletic Hall of Fame comes calling. What was it like for you to get that call and be inducted into their Hall of Fame?
It's awesome. It's growing up in a small town. There's so much support all through North Idaho, where I grew up. I still go up, on my elk hunting trip every year, and I go up on a deer hunting trip, and I spend a couple of weeks in the summer, and, they treat me like one of the guys. They don't treat me like some celebrity. I mean, they make me buy their beer at the local establishment, and, and so they treat me like one of the guys. They call me and say, hey, I need you to help me pack out my elk, and I go and grab the mule and help guys pack out their elk. So, I'm just one of the guys, and it's fun. And I'm going up, in 2 weeks to present my high school with that 50th anniversary golden football that the NFL gave every high school for all the guys that played in the Super Bowl. So that's going to be a lot of fun, going back to my high school and seeing all the guys again.
That's fantastic stuff. Ron, how can our listeners stay up to date, find more out about you, whether it's online or over social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter, peritusasset.com, or at peritusasset. It's Peritus asset. I'm in finance, like I said, so I'm there. I'm on Facebook. I don't do any of the other social media. I don't have time for it. My kids do it, my wife, and so that's it. So I'm around. I'm in the book in Santa Barbara. If you're in Santa Barbara, come visit me at the beach.
There you go. Ron, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's great having you as part of the show. We'll hope you'll come back and do it again with us sometime.
A lot of fun.
Anytime, guys. I love your show. I listen to you guys, so thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ron. In the meantime, before we catch up again, hopefully that'll be real soon. In the meantime, all the best to you and your family. Stay in touch.
Good night, Ron.
Yep. Take care.
Take care. That is former San Francisco 49ers tight end Ron Heller. I tell you what, Bob, a guy, and you say it on the show all the time, right? You love the guys that do the dirty work, the tight ends that have to be so versatile down in there. But you want to talk about, what it was like to go against that Saints, linebacking core, one of the greatest linebacking cores of all time, again, with Ricky Jackson, Pat Swilling, Sam Mills, and Vaughn Johnson. And for him to have success against those guys tells you a lot about how good Ron Heller was.
Yeah, and even though he's just in San Francisco those couple of years, Chris, you could just see the pride in his voice, and you really get a insight into that organization and how they conducted things. And it's kind of gotten lost in the translation over there, especially up in here in New England when they have that kind of entitlement, and for good reason. Anything less than a Super Bowl is not accepted, but we forget those 49er teams and how deep and good they were. You just look at the rosters, Chris, and we could probably put a guy in the Hall of Fame from those rosters for the next 20 years. So, that aren't in already, right? So, it's great getting it right from the horse's mouth, a guy that experienced it all, and that's great stuff about Montana right there.
Right. All right, we're going to get to our next guest, Reggie Barlow, on the other side of this word from our friends over at the French Lick Resort.
Now's the time to plan that golf getaway you've been dreaming about at French Lick Resort. We have new Golf Academy packages for 2016, guaranteed to take your game to the next level. Try our one-day Quick Fix Academy for golf emergencies. For more in-depth learning, try the Game Changer, designed to make you a better player. Our staff professionals are ready to work with you at French Lick Resort. Did you know there's only one place in the country that you can play courses designed by two members of the World Golf Hall of Fame on the same property? The Pete Dye and Donald Ross courses at French Lick Resort make us an ultimate golf destination for 2016. Check out the Ultimate Golf Package, the Hall of Fame Package, and other great offerings at FrenchLick.com. Let 2016 be that year you finally take your dream golf getaway at French Lick Resort. Play the courses champions play.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcons tight end, and you're listening to TNT, Thursday Night Tailgate. Brace yourself for the explosion.
Now back with us making his fifth appearance on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Reggie Barlow. Let me remind you about Reggie's background. He was born in Montgomery, Alabama, played his college ball at Alabama State University, was a fourth-round draft pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 1996, played wide receiver and kick returner in the NFL from 96 to 2003 with the Jags, Raiders, and Bucs. He tallied just over 4,000 all-purpose yards and was a part of the Bucs' 2002 Super Bowl championship team. Went back to coach his alma mater, Alabama State, from 2005 to 2014 and was their head coach from 2007 through 2014. And he finished with the second most head coaching victories in school history and, quite frankly, earned a better outcome there. He did a coaching internship not long ago with the Cleveland Browns. Away from the game, he may be the best fisherman, in my opinion, on the planet anywhere, and the guys on the Bass Masters Tour should be kicking in money to keep him off of that, because if he ever decided to join it, he'd win the World Championship every year. And we're excited to have him back with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Good evening, Reggie, Chris, and Bob. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Reggie.
Howdy. I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to come back and visit with you. It's always a good time when I have an opportunity to come, and I hope all is well with you guys.
Thanks.
I appreciate that very much, Reggie. Great having you here. So, Reggie, I got to start. On the fishing. I still can't believe that a guy of your skills and your talent isn't on the Bass Masters Tour. I mean, for crying out loud. The only thing that makes sense to me, Reggie, is some of those guys are kicking in money to keep you off of it. Because if you ever got out there, I'm telling you, you'd win the championship every year.
Yeah, those guys are really good. That's on the tour, and of course I watch them, and I enjoy just the experience and the success that they have. And I haven't been fishing very long, and I spend a lot of time. We have a pond out back, and we are able to have some success back there. And then there's a few other ponds here in Montgomery, Alabama, that we visit, and I enjoy it. What's crazy is I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and Tampa, Florida, around great ponds and lakes, and I never fished while I was there. I actually picked it up once I retired and moved back home.
Wow, that's an amazing story to me because again, I got folks. Please, you got to go check out Reggie Barlow's page on Facebook and see the amount of fish that this guy brings in every time he goes out. It's amazing to me. You got to be some sort of natural, Reggie, for you to be as good as you are. But again, Bassmasters Tour, my friend, it's got to be your future.
Well, I that may be something I need to look into. It's a passion of mine, and I can't get enough of it. Actually, I can't. And I think it is a blessing. I mean, some of the fish, the largemouth bass that I've caught, it's been a lot of them. And if you don't, if you look at the pictures, you might say, "Oh, this is the same fish." But obviously, it's several different times, and there are some big ones that I've been able to hang up out of there. So we enjoy it.
Reggie, like I mentioned a moment ago, you did a coaching internship with the Browns not that long ago, and that's an organization, Reggie. You just can't figure out what's going on with the Cleveland Browns, and they certainly can't figure out what's going on. They've gone through different ownership changes not all that long ago. They're certainly going through head coaches like it's water. They can't seem to figure out their draft picks. The quarterback situation. You spent some time there, looking at what's going on within the organization. What do they need to kind of get themselves righted?
Well, I think this new coach, I believe this guy has he's had a lot of success in the NFL, and he's shown that he can put an offense together and score points. And my time there on that internship was a great experience for me. One, because I love the tradition and history of the Cleveland Browns and how faithful are their fans, and their fans really deserve a winner. I think with the owner there now and the new GM that they'll have, and with Coach Jackson, I just believe that things are going to get better. Obviously, just like any other team in the NFL, it starts with the quarterback. That guy is a guy that has to be someone that the team is going to be able to rally behind. And unfortunately, things didn't work out there for the quarterback that's there now. But I think one of the great things I heard Coach Jackson say in one of his interviews, and I always thought this, a lot of coordinators, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators, they get head jobs in the NFL. And once they get the head job, the thing that got them that job, being a great coordinator, they often turn it over to someone else. And that was the first time, and not saying it was the only time that it happened, because maybe some other guys have said it, but Coach Jackson said, hey, I'm going to do what got me this position. I call plays. I've been successful calling plays, and I'm going to take ownership in that, and I'm going to call plays. Obviously, it's a huge demand. You have to be great to be able to do it. John Gruden did it. He called his own plays, and, of course, we won a Super Bowl. And there's been other ones, Mike Shanahan, but I like the fact that he's going to continue to call plays, the thing that has made him successful. And I just believe that he's the guy to get Cleveland jump-started and obviously get them heading in the right direction.
Have you had conversations with Hugh Jackson about potentially coming back and being a part of the coaching staff, whether it's in an internship position or permanently?
That would have been great. I don't personally know Coach Hugh Jackson, and obviously I have some relationships from coaches that are in the NFL, and he's a guy that I definitely love to learn from. I thought he did a pretty decent job there in Oakland when he was there, and then, of course, going over to Cincinnati over the last few years and doing a good job. So never count on anything. I mean, he would be another guy that I definitely wouldn't mind going back and doing another internship and just being able to learn under him. And obviously the guy has shown that he can score points and orchestrate, offense and all that stuff. So he's a good one.
Bob, questions for Reggie?
Hey, Reggie, I want to stay on that same topic of coordinators as coaches, Reggie, and I think it's fascinating to me because I think Wade Phillips was a great example. Some guys are just born to be coordinators, Reggie, and I think some guys it's a different job to be a head coach. I know the money and the fame comes with it, and guys jump at the chances, but I think guys, even Steve Spagnuolo up in here, New York, found out that hard way. Do you get that feeling, Reggie, that some guys, and Wade Phillips, there's none better right now, are just made to be that, and head coaching is maybe something totally different for these guys?
Well, you hit it on the head. I think, and I've never been an owner or anything, but there's a personality trait. There's a presence that I think all head coaches must have, especially the successful ones. I do believe that we're all not cut out to be head coaches. There are some guys who are outstanding coordinators, and that's just what it is. You know, I heard someone say some of us are Cadillacs and some of us are Yugos. And whether you're a Yugo or a Cadillac, there are some Cadillacs that can't even fit in the parking spot that a Yugo can fit in. So it's kind of the statement of being who you are and accepting that and just knowing that that's your role. It's not saying that, hey, you're not a good coach or you're not this, but you're a great coordinator. And there's been a lot of guys, unfortunately, over the course of the years who were great coordinators. They got a head job, and things just didn't work well for them. And, again, I go back to what Hugh Jackson said. I love that. He's owning, hey, here's what got me here, and I don't want to throw that off on someone else. So, obviously, you got to have a great support staff with your other assistant coaches to be able to help you out. I couldn't imagine being a head coach and being able to call a game. I mean, I admire guys that are able to do that. And obviously there have been a lot of them that have done it and was very successful. I mentioned Coach Shanahan. He was outstanding calling plays and, of course, won Super Bowls and all that good stuff. But it's a huge challenge.
And Reggie, going back to your playing days, and I've always, and Chris knows this, I've been fascinated by punt returners. I think we've mentioned it on this show before that you led the NFL in '98 with 555 yards in punt returns, almost 13 yards per punt return, which is off the charts. But it besides being a little crazy, Reggie, which you've told us before, you got to do that to return kicks. I mean, there's got to be other skills involved, and it's not all speed, is it?
No, sir. It's not all speed. I mean, I was a center fielder in baseball. Baseball was really my first love, and there's a perception that you have to have on those high punts that these kickers, these punters kick in the NFL. And I believe that me being a center fielder, playing baseball growing up, allowed me to have that perception of seeing the ball, the tip of the ball, and being able to catch it. And then, of course, it's the confidence in your guys that are holding up the gunners outside, and then the confidence of your guys inside, knowing that they're going to at least give you an opportunity to catch the ball and get your eyes back up on the coverage team to make a guy miss. And we had some guys there that took real passion in playing special teams. We had some really good special team coaches, and Larry Pasquale, and had a chance to work with Frank Gans, who I just think is an outstanding coach. But it's all of that stuff. And then knowing, just say if we were running a middle return, the two tackles on the punt team, typically they have contained. So if we're running middle, there's a chance sometimes we would, just force those guys wide, and knowing that, okay, they're going to stay wide and contain. Well, we're not going for width. We're going up the field. So just knowing who's being blocked and who's going to be the free guy. And obviously playing the NFL and being a punt return, you got to be able to make a guy or two miss on your own. But it's a daredevil job. I admire the guys that return punts, and there's been some great ones. I grew up just admiring guys like Tim Brown and Eric Metcalf, and and the list goes on of just really, really great punt returns that played in that league.
We're talking to former Jaguars and Bucs wide receiver, kick returner Reggie Barlow here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We've got our next guest, J.R. Redmond, hanging on the line. We're going to get to J.R. in just a moment. Reggie, a couple more before we let you go. Super Bowl just passed, and you had the opportunity to be on the winning side back in 2002 with the Bucs. Curious for you, when the clock hit 0-0 and you're a Super Bowl champion, what's the first thing you did?
I remember looking over at I think it was Sean King, and just shaking my head like, can you freaking believe that we have won a Super Bowl? And it was for Gruden and myself. I mean, obviously we both had come from Oakland. He had come there and that whole trade thing or whatever, and I got released and went there. So it was an amazing feeling to be able to win it. I'm a guy that grew up loving Tim Brown, and I had a chance to be his roommate there in training camp. And you hurt for a guy like that because he's a Hall of Famer. You know how awesome it would be for him to win one. But it was a great feeling for us, and just a blessing to be able to say that you got a Super Bowl ring. And the NFL is doing that 50-year celebration, right, of passing the footballs. And I don't know if this is a record or not. You guys could tell me. We got 6 at my high school.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the picture. That's got to be a record.
I've heard of all type of, guys, they going back and there's 2, there's 3, but we have 6 Super Bowl winners at my high school. And it started with Bart Starr. So how great is that to say I went to the same high school as Bart Starr and some of the other great players. So, but it's a blessing to have a Super Bowl ring. And, kudos to all those guys that are out there that had that opportunity to win one.
And Reggie, one more before we let you go. You had a successful run at Alabama State. We've talked about it several times, and you certainly deserve better than how it went at your alma mater. Head coaching positions. What's next for you from a coaching perspective? I got to believe there are people vying for your talents.
Well, right now, just being back home. Being out of it for a year, there's been a few head coaching jobs on the high school level, and hey, I love football. I love being a coach, and wherever it is, that's what I want to do. I prefer being at a FBS school, FCS school on a college level. That's something that I'm still open to and looking forward to an opportunity to do that. But my constant prayer has been, God, place me where I can not only put scores on the scoreboard, but have an impact on whoever lives that I'm willing to coach. And wherever he placed me, if it's high school, middle school, NFL, or college, we're going to get our whistle and go and give it our best shot.
That's great. Reggie, we're in your corner. We believe heavily in you. Like I say, you deserved a better outcome from your alma mater. You second winningest coach in their history. So we know you're a great coaching talent, and you've been a great guest with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We can't thank you enough for taking time to come back on the show. We hope you'll come back and do it again sometime real soon.
Yes, sir. I always enjoy it, and I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to be here. Thanks a lot.
Always great.
All right, Reggie. Reggie, take care. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to the opportunity to catch up with you, hopefully, like I say, real soon. Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Yep, thank you. See you. Bye.
Good night, Reggie. That is former Jaguars, Raiders, and Bucs wide receiver and kick returner Reggie Barlow. And, Bob, for a guy who has the second most wins as a head coach in your alma mater's history, and you guys, our listeners, everyone can look it up online. You can see how things went sour. I mean, they were going to give him a contract extension. They had agreed verbally to a contract extension, and then 3 weeks later decided to let him go after they went 7-5. Unbelievable to me, for what happened to Reggie there. But you want to talk about not only a guy who was a wonderful player in the NFL, but I'm telling you, Bob, Bassmasters Tour. For folks who haven't seen it, go on Facebook, look up Reggie Barlow. The guy's a phenomenon, and you think he hasn't been doing it for that long.
Very true, Chris. And what what I respect most about Reggie, about all that whole coaching situation we've already described, he's never really been really bitter and doesn't let it consume him. And he's gone on to these things like fishing, and he'll coach some places, and he's a very classy individual, always comes on the show when you ask, etc. So that's really, he's just a class act all throughout, and one of these days we're going to have to get him to let us in on some of these fishing secrets. I know he has some, but he's not saying them.
That's right. All right, before we get to our next guest, J.R. Redmond, I want to give a shout-out to our good friend Renee Shull over at Integrated Play. Folks, you hear us talk about it every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate, but if you're already in job transition or you're sitting back thinking to yourself, boy, I wish I were in job transition, go to Integrated Play online to see how Renee can help you. We like doing business, right? If you're going to do business with someone, you want to do business with someone who actually you can trust and has your best interests at heart. Well, you're not going to find someone who fits that description any better than Renee Shull at Integrated Play. She is smart, she's talented, and the kind of person you want to work with and have working for you. She has been doing some great things for some of our guests who have been in transition from being pro athletes and are now getting into the job market. Folks, I promise you, she is just the very best. There isn't a better way to describe Renee than that. If you work with her for 2 minutes, you're going to understand why we say that every single week here on the show. If you're an athlete or anybody in the job market, do yourself a favor and reach out to Renee. You're going to be very glad you did. Go to integratedplay.org online and give her a follow on Twitter at IntegratedPlay. All right, now making his TNT debut with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is J.R. Redmond. Let me remind you about J.R.'s background. He's from L.A., played his college ball at Arizona State, where he still ranks third on their all-time rushing list with over 3,200 yards, and he averaged 5.3 yards per carry, folks. Amazing. He was a part of their 1996 team with Jake Plummer and Pat Tillman that went undefeated in the regular season. Unfortunately, lost a heartbreaker to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. He was a third-round draft pick by the New England Patriots in 2000 and played in the NFL from 2000 to 2005 with the Patriots, Raiders, and Cardinals. Over that time, he accounted for over 1,400 all-purpose yards, and we are very honored that he is with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, JR, Chris and Bob here. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, JR.
Thanks. How you guys doing?
All right, really good, JR. JR, I was earlier this week. You had said, "Hey, I'm going to be stepping off a plane coming back from the Bahamas just before coming on the show." So I'm guessing life is going pretty well for you right about now.
Yeah, it's all right. I definitely had an opportunity to have a trip with my daughter, so it was one of our first trips, so it was really cool. Went to Atlantis and checked it out. She had a ball. Actually, right now I had to hop in my car because when I came back I had a workout, so I'm on a football field at Carson High School getting ready to train a couple kids.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Great.
JR, I want to really start getting back to your time in college at Arizona State. I'm curious, as a kid from L.A., how did USC, UCLA, and all the other California schools let you escape to Arizona State?
You know what? I don't know. I think the biggest thing with USC was, I really wanted to go to USC, being I was right up the street, maybe 15 minutes up the street from Carson. They, I believe at the time, they were recruiting also a kid by the name of Daylon McCutcheon when we came out to high school during the same time, and he was awesome. He's one of the best high school players in the state of California, and when he committed, I believe he chose to play DB and not running back, and they were recruiting me as a DB, and so that solidified their defensive backfield, and that's kind of how that happened with USC. As far as UCLA, I don't know if I was ever on their radar.
Really?
Yeah, as just from the standpoint of, obviously they recruited me because I was a hometown kid, but I just didn't get a real feel that, I was a good fit there.
So, JR, I was looking over some old game film from when you were at Arizona State. First, 1996, again, speaking of UCLA, you threw a touchdown pass in a game. Jake Plummer, late in the game that put you guys in front 35-34, a game you would go on to win, I believe 42-34 over UCLA. When that call comes in and you're in the huddle, are you nervous at all now that you know you're about to throw a pass?
No, not nervous. Just hoping it goes well. I think it's one of those things with football. If you're nervous, you're gonna have problems. So it wasn't so much nervous, just wanting it to really go well. Like, I hope I make a good throw to where he can make a play on the ball. I really couldn't even see him, so I threw a ball to an area, and he was there. He grabbed it and did his thing. Jake is an amazing player. He does magic with the ball in his hands.
Well, speaking of magic with ball in your hands, 1998 against Washington, you returned a punt 65 yards for a touchdown, only to have it called back on a penalty. Washington punts the ball again, and you very nearly returned it again for a touchdown. Remarkable back-to-back plays. Can you take us through what happened on those punt returns?
Yeah, actually, I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I seen it the other day when you guys posted it. You know what? I don't even know what happened. I think God was just with me because I should have been tackled. I can't even tell you. I can't even give you a reason for why what happened. I really can't, to be honest with you. I just kind of kept my feet turning. Guys were making blocks. I tried to get my whole body on the defender's half of the body so he couldn't get a square shot at me. And, man, I just happened to keep my feet and keep moving. And, yeah, it was. I don't know how it happened. I can't even give you an explanation.
Well, it's phenomenal to watch, and for any of our listeners, go on my Facebook page. I've posted it there. You can look it up on YouTube as well. Unbelievable back-to-back plays for almost two return touchdowns. And JR, you guys go through the whole 1996 regular season. You go undefeated. You started off that season beating Washington, avenging a 3-point loss to them the prior year. You beat Nebraska, who came into that game ranked number 1. You guys shut them out 19-0. You beat USC. You shellacked your in-state rivals at Arizona that they had beaten you guys the year before. And then the Rose Bowl comes. And it's one of the most exciting Rose Bowls ever. I looked at a lot of the game film on that thing. Unfortunately, it went Ohio State's way. But, take us through. What do you remember about that Rose Bowl?
Orlando Pace, Ohio State. David Boston was a freshman. Pepe Pearson was their running back. Mike Vrabel was a defensive end. They had a lot of studs on that team. I think the biggest thing I remember is just the atmosphere was amazing. It was kind of soggy that day, real overcast that day, and then the game itself was it was electric. Mostly a defensive game. The whole game, as far as I remember, the offense on either side didn't really do too well. I think the biggest thing that I do remember about that game is the last drive. I can't remember. I can't quite recall, but it seems like we had about 30 penalties on the last drive to put them in position to eventually throw that out and win the game. And it hadn't been that many calls the whole game, as far as I can remember. But the game was really exciting. Had a lot of fun. It was the first big game that I'd ever played in. You know what? I have to take that back. I like the Nebraska game better than the Rose Bowl, to be honest with you.
Well, certainly the outcome was better.
Yeah, but even just the atmosphere, because going into that Ohio State game as we were going undefeated, so we were probably not the favorite, but they knew that we were coming to play. No one knew we were coming to play when we played Nebraska. No one really gave us a chance at all, and they were rolling in there on 3 years being undefeated, maybe. I'm not sure what it was, maybe 2 seasons or something like that, if I recall. I'm not. But I know that they were undefeated, and they wasn't looking at us. They were looking right past us, and we popped them in the mouth pretty good. That's probably one of my favorite games I ever played in.
We're talking to former Arizona State and Patriots and Raiders running back J.R. Redmond here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Bob, questions for J.R.?
Hey, JR, I was shocked. Maybe I shouldn't be, but to find out about Carson High School that they sent, and this is amazing, Chris, I think it's about 20 people to the NFL from that one high school. and including the great Wesley Walker, who I grew up basically watching catch balls up here in New York. But do you guys, is it a close-knit alumni JR, a lot of camaraderie and brotherhood among you guys?
Yeah, it is. Carson is definitely a football community. We actually have a youth Pop Warner, Victoria Park, where it's pretty much the hotbed of talent. Any school that's in Southern California within 20 minutes is pulling kids out of that park. It's just a hotbed of talent. There's a lot of kids here. A lot of kids that are football kids. They grow up wanting, breathing, and loving football, and it's been like that since I was a kid, and it's still like that around here.
And JR, having been drafted up here, I'm in New England right now, and you're a very smart man for going to the Bahamas this past week instead of coming up to New England. But the third-round draft pick, that was number 76 overall. I want to know your expectations on that draft day and your reaction when you finally got the call from the Pats.
Well, my expectations, I've seen a couple guys that actually had went ahead of me, and I thought that possibly I could be in those positions. But at the same time, you are where you get picked at. So I was just waiting. And when I did get the phone call, I was actually on a call with them when they picked Adrian Clem. So I was thinking that I was going to go then. And then they picked Adrian Clem, which was a great pick, good offensive lineman, a great coach over at UCLA right now also. And then when I got the call, I was just like, okay, I guess I need a jacket. Because, it's pretty hot in Arizona. There's no need for jackets. I need sweaters. I need long sleeves. I need boots. I got to get all new stuff. And needless to say, I don't think my first summer there didn't get hotter than like 46 degrees, I believe. It was just a freezing summer for some reason. I don't know why. Or 66 degrees is probably the hottest it got that summer. I don't know how you can spend that much time during the hot months and be that cold. It's a complete change of atmosphere for me. I guess one of the funniest things is I can remember being in Arizona, coming out of class, and you walk across campus and you sweat off 5 pounds of the deodorant that you put on before you went to school, and you get in your car and you get you some wipes and try and put on some fresh deodorant. You grab your deodorant and it's melted. You open it and it burnt me because it spilled all over the place. From having that to fast forward a year later, you get in your car, you're in New England, and you realize you didn't put no lotion on, you're pretty ashy, and you got lotion in the glove department, and you grab your lotion and it's frozen, it won't come out at all. So I went from one extreme to the other. It was it was a definite experience, but I loved it. Needless to say. I appreciate everything that all the opportunities that I got when I was in New England. Coach Belichick and Mr. Kraft and that whole staff, all of those coaches are stand-up guys, great men as well. And I had an opportunity of a lifetime while I was there.
JR, it's probably hard for people to imagine at this point, but when you got to the Patriots in 2000, that was Bill Belichick's first season, and they weren't very good. You finished 5-11 and 2-8 at one point. What was that first season like for you?
Wow, it was a big adjustment. Just getting used to the volume of information that you have to have and be able to retain, as well as just getting acclimated to the pro game and the pro lifestyle and the expectation. Those things wasn't hard, but definitely a transition. And then being at Arizona State, got kind of comfortable with winning, and so having a losing season, that was kind of new. I'd never really been halfway into a season before and only won 2 games, so those were definitely some rough experiences, but needless to say, it built a lot of character, and the next year we came out and we handled our business.
And you were a very integral part of the Patriots Raiders AFC Championship game, the day in the snow up in Foxborough, the tuck rule game as it's become known as. Take us through last drive. You were very integral in the last drive, getting the Patriots into position. Take us through that.
The snowball?
Yes.
I'm sorry? Yeah, the snowball. Okay, first I have to say this because I'm just growing up in Los Angeles. All I ever wanted to do was play in the snow. So that was just so fun. That was an amazing. It's an amazing experience. You know, you feel like all of the games that you watched on ESPN Classic and growing up watching Denver. I was a big Denver fan growing up, so I used to like John Elway, watching some of those games. Jim Kelly, watching some of those games. I mean, it's snow all over the place. You feel like you haven't played football until you've played in the snow. And so I was happy to say that, you know, now 2 years in, I finally played a football game because I've been in the snow. It was an amazing game. Defense of the Raiders was pretty good. You know, they had a solid plan, but we had a pretty solid plan too. Coach Charlie Wise was really good and putting together great schemes that would always have us with an opportunity to make a play no matter what the defense presented us. So this is a really good game, and everybody made the plays that needed to be made at the time they needed to be made. So,
Bob, more for JR?
And JR, you played under, like you said, Belichick, and when you went out to Oakland, I mean, from New England to Oakland, you played under guys like Callahan, North, Turner. Was it a totally different experience, JR, offensively? I mean, you ended up catching a lot more passes, it seemed like, out in Oakland, but what was the main differences as far as the coaching staff? Belichick wasn't the Belichick at the time, but you probably enjoyed it more here than there. I could tell by the tone of your voice.
You guys have to forgive me because I am out here on the field with a lot of kids, so you guys can hear some noise in the background. And so, I'm sorry. Can you ask me that one more time, sir? I didn't.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the main differences of playing in New England and Oakland, JR, as far as coaching-wise. Belichick became Belichick, but guys like Callahan and North Turner are kind of a different whole mindset.
Yeah. Coach Belichick, how can I put this? I think the best way to say it is Coach Belichick is, I would say, a perfectionist. And he's great when it comes to preparation and making sure that you're prepared. I think the biggest thing between New England and Oakland from a coaching standpoint would be the amount of preparation that we put into a game. The way that they prepare in New England is it's amazing. You know, it's amazing. It's almost military-like. You know, as far as, you know, the amount of information that they give us, the amount of study that we have to do. I can remember preparing for a game every week, you know, I had to do an actual report, and I thought school was over. It would be, you know, the first-string linebackers, second-string linebackers, third-string linebackers, as well as the safeties. I would have to know what defensive fronts they play versus down and distance. What fronts do they like to jump in? How do they blitz? If it's each linebacker, you had to have detailed information. How is he as a blitzer? How is he in space? How is he as a tackler? Is he a good cover guy? What's his backup like? So, and knowing all of these things, a lot of times when we play people or when we played people, we knew what they're going to do before they did it because we knew them. We actually studied the players as well as understanding the scheme of what the other team is trying to do. So the amount of preparation is just unbelievable, and that's why Tom has been able to have the success that he has because the amount of preparation that they put in. Not to mention he's just going to be successful anyway because he's a smart guy and he works hard. But you know, the way that they taught us early on how to prepare, and he's been able to take that, you know, from baby food to, you know, a full course meal and do his thing. I appreciate it. It's just great to watch.
And JR, I believe your 3 years in New England, I think 2 of them you played in the old place, the Schaefer Foxborough Stadium, which it took me 6 hours to get home to Connecticut from. It was crazy, JR. You remember that place. And then you went to Gillette, which is unbelievably beautiful. Just compare the two quickly for us.
Oh, it's kind of like I don't even know you can compare them, because one of them is just like old school Battle Dome, and the other one's just nice. It's new and it's fresh and it's exciting and it's, a real electric atmosphere, and it has all of the, modern and state-of-the-art things. But the old Foxborough Stadium, it's like playing at my high school, man.
Exactly.
It's going down. It's like playing at my high school, man. It was just, the fans are great in New England. That's one of the things I definitely want to say. The fans in New England are always awesome. Whenever I'm ever in the area, you know what I mean, I always get a lot of love from New England fans, and I, just wanted to say that I appreciate that to those that are out there actually listening.
JR, before we let you go, let our listeners know how they can follow you online over social media and get information about the pro training camps that you run.
Okay, justruntraining.com. It'll say the official website of JR Redmond. I also just recently have a Facebook page, so you can look me up on Facebook and friend me. And yes, I run a training program, an off-season program. We do speed, agility, and functional movement for all ages, a sports performance enhancement program that was designed by myself. And I've been doing this since about 2003, and I have annual camps, about 10 annual camps in the States and five up in Canada. And so during the off-season, I just kind of have an opportunity to go work with high school, Pop Warner, and semi-pro clubs, and teach them what I know.
That's great stuff. JR, thank you so much for taking time away to be a part of the show. It was great having you. We hope you'll come back and join us again sometime. You're fantastic.
Please do.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Let me know, fellas.
Thank you.
All right, JR, best of luck with the kids in the camp. Again, Just Run Pro Training Camps. It's JR Redmond, former Patriots and Arizona State and Raiders running back. JR, thank you for being here. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up with you hopefully soon.
All right, thanks.
Take care, guys.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye.
That's, again, former Arizona State and Patriots running back JR Redmond. And Bob, when you look back, I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of his college stuff and the guys that he had the opportunity to play with at Arizona State. And I mentioned it briefly, but he was there with Jake Plummer. He was there with Pat Tillman. Next time we have him back on the show, I want to ask him a little bit more about his time and getting to know Pat, and obviously the situation that ultimately happened with Pat. But also, a guy that's been on our show, Jeremy Stott, was on those teams, and they were pretty successful. You went, and again, look at the YouTube videos of JR. What an amazing athlete he was coming out of college, and then in the time that he had the opportunity to play with New England. But great athlete, Bob.
Oh, those videos, I watched a couple of them, Chris, that you posted. He looked like a water bug just going through those guys. It was unbelievable to watch. And it is amazing, Chris, that every guy we've had that has played under Belichick says the same thing. Is it uncanny about how the genius of him and the preparation? So that's got to tell you a lot, any aspiring coaches out there. But, great guest, great athlete in his time. And, check those videos out. They're great to watch.
Absolutely. All right, when Bob and I come back, we'll give you our Thursday Night Tailgate spotlight on the positive, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we're going to do that on the other side of this word from our friends over at Coastal Orthopedics.
Are you suffering from chronic pain in your shoulders, hips, knees, or wrists? Tired of living life with an old injury that just won't go away? If you answered yes to either of these questions, we can help. At Coastal Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dr. Candelora and his fine staff of medical professionals will get you back on the road to recovery. Their state-of-the-art facility and attention to detail will ensure you will be enjoying life again and feeling invincible in no time. Since 1991, Dr. Candelora and Coastal Orthopedics have been specializing in joint replacement, arthritis, and osteoporosis care. as well as pediatric and adult general orthopedics. Visit us on the web, www.bone-dr.com, or call our Newport Richey office just north of Tampa at 727-848-1417. Proud sponsors of Mike Ditka's The Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund.
Hey, welcome back. This is Todd Washington, two-time Super Bowl champ, offensive line coach for the Baltimore Ravens, and you are listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with my boys Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Go get them, guys.
We are back on Thursday Night Tailgate with our spotlight on the positive. Bob, what do you have for us this week?
That's a great segue, Chris. I'm going to be talking about a Raven, and I know they've been a thorn in your side for years being a Steeler fan.
Yes.
But I have to give a shout-out to Steve Smith. I think he may come back for another year next year, Chris. This guy, again, a future Hall of Famer, but I did more research into what this guy has done off the field. Of course, he was nominated for the Man of the Year, and that could have been given to so many guys this year. But what he has done, he had surgery, Chris, in the off season, and he is so devoted to all these charities involved with. He was on a scooter after just a few weeks after this surgery. He couldn't walk, but he was still on a scooter in the Baltimore area helping out young kids. Him and his wife, Angie, have founded the Steve Smith Foundation. This was a couple of years back. It has a lot to do, Chris, with domestic violence. Sadly, that's such a big thing in the news these days and a big problem in this country. And he does a lot to fight it, including raising funds through 5K races and different things like that. And what really got to me was this past April, Chris, he actually went to Germany, to one of our military bases, and was helping out children of active duty guys, wounded soldiers he was visiting. This guy does it all, and he does it internationally. And not only has been a Hall of Famer on the field, but he is just as great a man off it. As tough as it is for me to give props to a Raven, Chris, he deserves all that you can give. A great man.
Yeah, well, it's obviously hard for me as well, but no, that's great stuff, Bob. This week I want to put the spotlight on the Dallas Cowboys, and specifically on head coach Jason Garrett, his wife Brill, Candace Romo, Chelsea Springfield, Darren McFadden, Jamie Showers, and Tyler and Tiffany Klutz. And the reason why I'm doing that, those folks got involved with the Salvation Army's disaster relief team down in Garland, Texas. And for folks who don't remember what happened down in Garland, Texas, they had a couple of tornadoes, an F3 and an F4 tornado ripped through that city, killing, unfortunately, 11 people. And it happened shortly after Christmas. And the folks from the Cowboys organization, those guys got involved, personally delivered meals, water, and supplies to hundreds of folks down there who were, without their homes, without power. And the Cowboys organization, they also got together with the local CBS affiliate down there and folks from Albertsons supermarkets to do a TV fundraiser. They raised some money for those families, 2.5 hours in the TV, sort of a telethon sort of thing, raised $60,000 to help support those families. So kudos to those folks in the Cowboys organizations for getting involved and helping people who are dealing with an awful lot of personal tragedy, the loss of life, and a great deal of other trauma as well. So wanted to put the spotlight on the Cowboys for doing that, and like I say, for those individuals specifically who got involved. And these are the types of things, folks, that Bob and I want to make sure that we are spotlighting for you, every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. You hear us talk about it a lot. Unfortunately, we get so much of the bad news about what players are doing, and we've said it before, about 95% of the time, the guys are doing great things. The organizations themselves are doing great things. Unfortunately, we just don't hear about it like we should. It's sort of either the news that goes unreported, or it's the small paragraph on page 12 that hardly ever gets read. So, spotlight on the positive. Kudos to Steve Smith. Kudos to the Cowboys and these folks specifically that went out and are doing some great things within their communities.
Great stuff.
All right, Bob, it is time for us to put a bow on this episode of Thursday Night Tailgate. We want to thank again David Meltzer, Michelle Patterson, Paul Alexander, Ron Heller, Reggie Barlow, and J.R. Redmond for joining us tonight and for making tonight's show so much fun for us to be a part of. We hope you guys listening enjoyed it as well. Bob, always my biggest thanks goes out to you because you're the very best, my friend.
I appreciate that, Chris. We had a lot of fun tonight, and thank you for playing hurt. And I'm going to try to get up from this chair. I've been sitting in 2 hours myself, so a little stiff from the cold weather, Chris, but we'll get through it. Hope you have a better week. I
appreciate that, my friend. All right, next week, who do we have scheduled to join us? Well, a long-lost friend, former Broncos and Falcons running back Gene Lang will rejoin us. It's been far too long since we've had Gene on the show. His story about wanting to take out Jerry Glanville if he ever saw him again, particularly in an airport somewhere or wherever, is sort of legendary here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We'll try to get him to retell that story when he joins us next week. Speaking of 49ers, former 49ers offensive lineman Steve Wallace will be making his TNT debut with us. Former Jets running back Blair Thomas will be back. The owner of the New York Court Kings of the American Basketball Association, Nicole Bird, she was scheduled to join us a few weeks ago, and her real-life job had to take her away from us, but she'll join us. She's got a fascinating story. So looking forward to having Nicole on the show with us. Plus, hopefully, Tony Collins will be back with us. Tony had a little family emergency, took him away from us tonight. Hopefully, everything is okay with Tony and his family, and we'll get the opportunity to have Tony back on the show in his regular time slot with us next week. So it's going to be a great show. We hope you'll come back and be a part of it with us. Want to remind you how you can find us over social media. First of all, Thursday Night Tailgate, our Facebook page. Please interact with us there. You can find us on Twitter. I am at CT-mascaro. Bob is at Bob_Lazzari. You can find the show at TNT Podcast. And also, you can stay up to date with who some of our future guests are going to be. You can stream or download any of our archived episodes for free, folks, by going to our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. Bob, take us home, my friend.
Thank you, Chris, and of course, thanks go out to our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads, and to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for our upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we thank everyone out there tonight for listening. We appreciate you all the most. Until next week, good night, Kevin. Keep fighting.